The smell hit me first, before I saw anything, before I understood what I'd found. Just the smell. Wrong. That's all my brain could process. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Not decay. I knew that smell, dealt with it my whole life as a hunter. This was different. Lived in, organic, like walking past someone's house and catching their scent. Personal, intimate, human, but not human. I was 70 yards off the deer trail following fresh elk tracks through dense Oregon forest when I pushed through a stand of ancient cedars and saw it. The nest. That's the only word my mind could find. Woven branches, stripped bark, moss cushioning, ferns arranged deliberately 8 feet across, built against a massive fallen log. Shelter. Home. Someone had built a home here. And 20 feet away, partially hidden by undergrowth, I saw the second thing, small, covered with a layer of cedar boughs, carefully placed, deliberately arranged, not random forest debris, intentional, protected, hidden. I approached slowly, moved the branches aside, and my hand started shaking so badly I had to step back. A burial? A child's burial? Tiny body wrapped in what looked like woven plant fibers, maybe 3 feet long? Impossible to be human in these proportions, but also impossible to be animal. Something between, something that had been loved, been mourned, been laid to rest with care that transcended species. And I understood, standing there in that hidden clearing with my rifle forgotten and my breath coming too fast, I'd found something that would change everything. Not just prove they existed, but prove they were like us in ways we'd never imagined. They buried their dead, they grieved, they built homes, they loved. And 30 yards away, watching me from the tree line, I could feel eyes. Parents maybe, family, waiting to see what this human would do, waiting to see if I'd violate what they'd protected. And I had maybe 10 seconds to make the most important decision of my life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. Start where it actually started. November 1979. When I was just a 58-year-old hunter looking for elk and found something that would haunt me for the rest of my days. Name's Leonard Whitmore. I'm 82 now, dying. Emphysema from 60 years of smoking. Doctors say I got maybe 3 months. Figured before I go, this story needs telling. The whole truth. What I found, what I did, what happened after, all of it. November 1979. I'd been hunting the Oregon Cascades for 40 years. Knew every ridge, every valley, every game trail. I wasn't trophy hunting, never was. Just meat hunting, filling my freezer for winter. Elk mostly, sometimes deer. Clean kills, respectful. I'd been raised to honor what you take, waste nothing, show gratitude. November 18th, 1979, cold morning, maybe 25 degrees, fresh snow from the night before, perfect tracking conditions. I'd seen elk sign the day prior, big herd, maybe 12 animals, bulls and cows together. I was working my way up a drainage, moving slow, watching for movement. Found fresh tracks around 9 a.m. Big bull, maybe 600 pounds. Tracks were maybe 2 hours old, still sharp in the snow. I started following. The trail led northeast, away from the main drainage, into terrain I didn't know as well. Steep, dense forest, old-growth cedar and Douglas fir, the kind of wilderness that feels like it's never seen humans, like you're trespassing just by being there. I followed for maybe 2 hours. The tracks were meandering. Bull was browsing, not spooked, moving casual. I was being patient, letting him lead me, knowing eventually he'd bed down for midday. That's when I'd make my approach. Get close. Make the shot count. Then the tracks did something strange. Cut hard left, off the ridge, down into a small draw I hadn't even noticed. No reason for it. No browse down there, no water, just thick forest and deadfall. But the tracks went there, deliberate. So I followed. That's when everything changed. When I pushed through those cedars and saw the nest, I stopped breathing. Just stopped. My brain trying to process what I was seeing. This wasn't random. This wasn't windfall and branches. This was architecture, crude maybe, but intentional. Woven branches forming walls, cedar bark stripped and laid for waterproofing. Inside, I could see from where I stood, moss cushioning, ferns arranged, soft materials, bedding. This was shelter, built shelter, by something that understood weather and comfort and planning ahead. Maybe 12 feet long, 8 feet wide, 4 feet high at the center, built against a massive downed log that provided one wall. The other 3 walls were woven branches, thick ones at the base for structure, smaller ones interlaced for coverage, cedar boughs layered on top for waterproofing. Snow had accumulated on it, but underneath you could see it was dry, functional. This thing worked. I approached slowly, rifle ready, not sure what I expected, but every instinct screaming, something's here, something made this, something that might still be close. The smell got stronger as I got closer, not threatening, just present. Like walking into someone's bedroom, you can smell them, their life, their existence. Inside the nest, I ducked down, looked in. There were more details. Deliberately arranged stones forming what looked like a fire ring. No fire currently, but charred wood, evidence of fires, plural. This wasn't one-time shelter. This was lived in, used repeatedly, maintained. Food remains, bones, picked clean, stacked neatly to one side, not scattered, organized, deer bones mostly, maybe elk, some smaller animals, rabbit, squirrel, carnivore diet, but also plant material, dried berries in a woven basket. A basket. Crude, made from cedar roots maybe, but functional, holding food, storage, planning, future thinking. And tools, God, tools. Stones with obvious working edges, used for scraping hides maybe, or processing meat, deliberately shaped, not quite refined, but intentional, purposeful. This was technology, primitive, but real. Someone here was making tools, using them, living a life that required them. I backed out, stood up, trying to process, trying to understand. And that's when I noticed the second sight. 20 feet away, different, smaller. And the feeling coming off it was different too. Not lived in, not active, something else, something that made my chest tighten before I even understood why. Moved closer, saw the cedar boughs arranged in a mound. Deliberate pattern, protective, covering something. My hands were shaking when I reached for them, some part of me already knowing, already understanding what I was about to see. Pulled back the branches, and there it was. Small body, maybe 3 feet long, wrapped in fibers. Plant fibers woven into something like cloth, burial shroud. The body was desiccated, partially decomposed, been here months maybe. But the proportions, even in death, even degraded, were wrong for human, wrong for animal. Head too large, arms too long, something between, something unique, a child. That's what I was looking at, a child's burial. Someone had wrapped this small body, had laid it here, had covered it with cedar boughs, had mourned, had said goodbye, had loved enough to do this to mark the death, to make it matter, to refuse to let their child disappear unmarked and unmourned. I sat down hard, just dropped, because the implications were crashing over me. This wasn't just proof Bigfoot existed. This was proof they were like us. They built homes, they made tools, they stored food, they planned for tomorrow, and they buried their children, they grieved, they honored their dead. Everything we told ourselves made humans special, they had it too. Maybe cruder, maybe simpler, but present, real, undeniable. And somewhere nearby, I could feel it. They were watching. The parents maybe, the family, whoever had built that nest, whoever had buried that child. They were close, watching this human who'd stumbled into their most private space, their home, their grief, waiting to see what I'd do, whether I'd respect or violate, whether I'd honor or exploit. I stood up slowly, carefully replaced the cedar boughs, exactly as I'd found them, protecting the burial, preserving the intention. Then I backed away, didn't photograph anything, didn't collect samples, didn't disturb, just acknowledged what I'd seen. Showed respect the only way I knew how, by leaving it alone. But I couldn't leave it unreported. This was too important, too significant. This changed everything we thought we knew. So 3 days later, after struggling with what to do, I went to the authorities. Sheriff Vincent Callahan. Told him everything. Expected dismissal, expected mockery. Got neither. "You're serious," he said, not a question. "Dead serious. I know how it sounds, but I know what I saw. And if I'm right, if this is real, people need to know. Scientists need to know. This is important." Sheriff Callahan studied me. We'd known each other 20 years, hunting buddies occasionally. He knew I wasn't a liar, wasn't prone to bullshit. "Show me," he said. "Take me there. Let me see for myself." November 25th, 1979. I led Sheriff Callahan and 2 deputies to the site. Took us 4 hours. The nest was still there, undisturbed. The burial was still there, still covered, still protected. Callahan examined everything, photographed, documented, called in the state police, who called in anthropologists from Oregon State University. Dr. Eleanor Thornton arrived 2 days later, forensic anthropologist, 60 years old, experienced, skeptical, but professional. She examined the nest, the tools, the burial, spent 6 hours at the site, took extensive notes, collected samples carefully, respectfully, and when she was done, she sat down and just stared for a long time before speaking. "Mr. Whitmore, this is real. The burial is real. The remains are not human. Not any known primate, something else, something unknown. And the cultural behaviors on display, the nest construction, the tool use, the burial practices. This indicates intelligence we haven't credited this species with. This is extraordinary. This changes everything." Over the following months, quietly, the site was studied. More anthropologists came, forensic experts, primatologists, botanists to identify the plant materials, geologists to date the site. Everyone was sworn to confidentiality. No media, no public announcements, just careful documentation, respectful investigation, trying to understand without exploiting. Dr. Thornton led the research. She approached it like any archaeological site: grid mapping, layer documentation, sample collection with full chain of custody. But also, and this impressed me, with reverence. She wouldn't let anyone treat it casually, insisted on respect. "This is someone's home," she'd say, "someone's child. Treat it accordingly." The child had died from what looked like infection, a wound on the left leg that had become septic, maybe from a fall, maybe from an animal encounter, impossible to know for certain. But the bone showed signs of inflammation, of infection spreading, of a small body fighting and losing. Maybe 8 months old based on bone development and tooth eruption. Had been alive, had been loved, had been mourned. The burial showed remarkable care. The wrapping wasn't random plant fibers, it was specifically cedar bark, naturally antibacterial, aromatic, chosen deliberately. The weaving showed technique, practice skill. Someone had done this before, or learned from someone who had. Cultural knowledge passed down, preserved. Applied to their most painful task. Under the body they found more cedar boughs, creating a cushion, separating the child from cold earth, showing care even in death, even when the child couldn't feel it anymore, showing love that transcended function. That was about honoring, about making death less harsh, about treating their baby gently, even when gentleness no longer mattered medically, but mattered desperately emotionally. The grave's location wasn't random either. Dr. Thornton noted it was positioned where morning sun would hit it first. Deliberate, chosen, perhaps meaningful to them, perhaps just coincidence we wanted to see as meaningful, but positioned with care regardless. Thought had gone into this. Consideration, planning even through grief. The nest showed long-term habitation, years maybe, Multiple seasons evident from the plant materials, fresh growth woven into older dried sections, repairs visible, maintenance. This family, because evidence suggested at least 3 individuals using the site based on different-sized hand impressions in soft earth, different-sized bedding areas, different-sized tools, had lived here, raised their child here, lost their child here, mourned here, and continued living here after. That's what shocked Dr. Thornton most. They stayed, she said, after the death. Most animals abandoned sites associated with death, but they stayed, kept living here, kept maintaining the nest, kept visiting the grave. You can see the path worn into the ground between nest and burial. They couldn't leave, or wouldn't. They stayed near their child. Food remains told stories, too. Deer bones picked clean but not scattered. Stacked along one edge of the nest. Organization. Order. Elk bones showing cut marks consistent with stone tool use. Evidence of butchering, of processing, of taking large animals and reducing them to manageable portions. Planning. Future thinking. Taking more than you need right now because you know you'll need it later. The dried berries in that basket, Dr. Thornton identified them as huckleberries and salal berries. Both highly nutritious, both requiring knowledge to identify, both needing to be collected in late summer and dried for winter storage. This was food preservation, seasonal planning, understanding cycles, preparing for scarcity, intelligence, foresight, culture. The tools were analyzed extensively, basalt mostly, riverstone shaped through percussion flaking, crude by human standards but functional, showing clear understanding of how stone fractures, how edges form, how to create the shape needed for the task. Technology, innovation, problem solving. Some tools showed wear patterns consistent with hide scraping, others with plant processing, different tools for different tasks, specialization, efficiency, advancement. Dr. Thornton wanted to remove the remains for further study. I said no, said I'd found it, had some say. That burial deserved to stay. That child deserved to rest where their parents had laid them. After debate, they agreed. Documented everything thoroughly, but left the remains, left the burial, respected it. The site was never publicized, still hasn't been. They classified it as an ongoing investigation, restricted access, protected the location, because publishing would bring crowds, would bring exploitation, would violate the very privacy and dignity that family had sought. That child deserved, that space held. I'm 82 now. That was 45 years ago, and I've spent every one of those years thinking about what I found, what it meant, what I learned, and as I'm dying, as these final months wind down, I need to tell you what that day taught me. Not numbered lessons, not organized principles, just the messy, complicated truth I've been carrying. Standing in that clearing, looking at that nest and that tiny burial, something fundamental shifted in me. I'd spent 40 years hunting, killing animals for food, justifying it as natural, as necessary, as the way of things. And maybe it was, maybe it still is. But that day, I understood something I'd been avoiding. Everything I killed had a life, had experiences, had maybe family, had value beyond just meat for my freezer. That child in the ground, that wasn't an animal, but it wasn't human either. It was something in between, and its parents loved it just like human parents love their children, grieved just like we grieve, built a home just like we build homes, tried to survive just like we try to survive. So where's the line? Where do we draw it? At what point does a being go from animal I can kill to someone who deserves life? And who gets to decide? I never hunted again after that day. Couldn't. Every time I raised my rifle at an elk or deer, I saw that nest, saw that burial, saw evidence of lives being lived, families existing. And I couldn't pull the trigger, couldn't take a mother from her children, couldn't end something that might be mourned, might be missed, might matter to someone else in ways I couldn't see. People said I was being ridiculous, said deer aren't people, said Sasquatch, if they exist, aren't people either. said I was anthropomorphizing, projecting human emotions onto animals that don't feel that way. Maybe they're right. Maybe deer don't grieve. Maybe Sasquatch, despite the burial, despite the nest, don't love like we love. But maybe they do. And I couldn't risk it, couldn't live with the possibility that I was causing grief, creating loss, making someone, something, mourn. The nest taught me about intelligence we don't recognize. Those tools were crude. That basket was simple. But they worked. They showed planning, problem solving, future thinking, innovation. Everything we claim makes us special, just expressed differently, developed to different degrees but present. And if we can't recognize intelligence unless it looks exactly like ours, unless it builds cities and writes books and uses our kind of tools, then we're blind, willfully blind, missing consciousness all around us because we're too arrogant to see it in forms that don't mirror us. The burial taught me about grief that transcends language. Those parents couldn't write eulogies, couldn't hire funeral homes, couldn't purchase headstones, but they'd wrapped their child, had chosen a place, had marked it with cedar boughs, had protected it, had done everything we do when we lose someone we love, just with the materials they had, the knowledge they possessed, the culture they'd developed. And it was beautiful, heartbreaking, profound. Proof that love and loss aren't human monopolies. They're universal experiences of consciousness, felt by any being capable of attachment, of memory, of care. I think about that family sometimes, wonder if they're still there, still living in that forest, still mourning that child, or if they've moved on, found other territory, had other children, continued their lives beyond that grief. I hope they have. Hope they've healed as much as anyone can heal from losing a child. Hope they've found peace. But I also think about what we owe them, what we owe all beings that share this planet with us. Not just Sasquatch, everything, every creature trying to survive, trying to raise their young, trying to live their lives unmolested by us. We've decided unilaterally, arrogantly, that we're the only ones who matter, the only ones with rights, the only ones whose lives and homes and families deserve protection. And we justify it by saying they're less than us, less intelligent, less conscious, less deserving. But that nest and that burial proved otherwise. Proved that less than human doesn't mean less than valuable, doesn't mean unworthy of consideration, doesn't mean okay to destroy. I violated that family's privacy by finding their home, by seeing their child's burial. I didn't mean to. Didn't intend harm, was just following elk tracks. But intent doesn't erase impact. I saw something sacred, something private, something they'd hidden for good reason. And then I reported it, brought authorities, brought scientists, brought scrutiny to their most painful, personal loss. Did I do the right thing? I don't know. Still don't know 45 years later. Knowledge was gained. Science was advanced. Understanding deepened. But at what cost to them, to that grieving family? I'll never know, and that uncertainty haunts me. What I do know is this: we share this world with consciousness we don't understand, with beings that love and grieve and build and plan and honor their dead, with species that have every right to exist unmolested that we claim for ourselves, and if we can't extend them the same respect, the same consideration, the same right to live their lives in peace, then what does that make us? What does it say about our intelligence that we can't recognize it in others? What does it say about our morality that we only extend rights to those who look and think like us? I'm dying now, soon, days or weeks, and I'm carrying this story to my grave, carrying the memory of that tiny burial, that carefully constructed nest, that evidence of love crossing species boundaries, carrying gratitude that I saw it, carrying guilt that I disturbed it, carrying hope that they're still out there somewhere, still surviving, still building homes and loving their children and burying their dead with dignity and care, still existing in the margins we haven't yet destroyed, still proving, whether we acknowledge it or not, that we're not alone in consciousness, not special in love, not unique in grief. Just one species among many, trying to survive, trying to matter, trying to leave something behind when we're gone. That nest was a home, that burial was love, that family was real, and they deserved better than my intrusion, better than our denial, better than our arrogance. They deserve to exist in peace, unmolested, unconfirmed, unknown, safe in their anonymity, protected by our willful blindness. Because maybe not knowing for sure is better than the certainty that would destroy them. Maybe mystery serves them better than proof. Maybe the kindest thing we can do is leave them alone. That's what I learned in that clearing 45 years ago. That's what I'm dying with. That's the truth I needed to tell before I go. Not that Bigfoot exists, though they do. Not that I found proof, though I did. But that consciousness and love and grief exist in forms we refuse to acknowledge. And until we learn to see it, to honor it, to protect it regardless of species, we're failing. Morally, ethically, fundamentally. We're failing. And that nest, that burial, that tiny body wrapped with love and laid to rest with care will always remind us if we listen, that we're not alone, not special, not the only ones who matter, just one kind of being among many, sharing this world, trying to survive, deserving respect we've yet to fully give.